Writing description can be a tricky business. Too much and the reader might get bored. Too little and they'll definitely get confused. I don't envy the writer who's got to set the scene and keep a tight grip on the reader all at once. I might go spin a basketball while riding a unicycle instead. However, I have good reason for courage. In this post, I'm going to talk about a lesson I learned from Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. In Chapter 3, William Hamley, a 19-year-old knight, approaches Earl's Castle, the fortress of the Earl of Shiring. His family want to capture it, and they've sent him as a scout. As William rides toward the gate, a description of the fortress seems to be in order. Here Ken Follett has to show his skill. And here's what he writes. William noted that the last section of the bridge could be drawn up into the massive stone gatehouse that formed the entrance to the castle. There were stone towers at intervals all around the earth wall, so that every part of the perimeter could be covered by defending archers. To take this castle by frontal assault would be a long and bloody business, and the Hamleys could not muster enough men to be sure of success, William concluded gloomily. A little later in Chapter 3, another character, Tom Builder, approaches the same Earl's Castle. He's looking for employment as a mason. Here's the description we get. The wooden bridge that led over the moat to the gatehouse was flimsy and ramshackle, but that was probably how the Earl liked it. A bridge was a means of access for attackers, and the more readily it fell down, the safer the castle was. The perimeter walls were of earth with stone towers at intervals. Ahead of them as they crossed the bridge was a stone gatehouse, like two towers with a connecting walkway. Plenty of stonework here, Tom thought. Not one of these castles are all mud and wood. Tomorrow I could be working. He remembered the feel of good tools in his hands, the scrape of the chisel across a block of stone as he squared its sides and smoothed its face, the dry feel of dust in his nostrils. Tomorrow night my belly may be full, with food I've earned, not begged. Coming closer, he noticed with his mason's eye that the battlements on top of the gatehouse were in bad condition. Some of the big stones had fallen, leaving the parapet quite level in parts. There were also loose stones in the arch of the gateway. After I read the first description of Earl's Castle, I was simply pleased that the description in the Pillars of the Earth never seemed to drag. However, I didn't consider why that was until I read the second description. Then something became clear to me. I think the description never dragged because of three things. 1. It was couched in opinion. 2. It was important to the reader. And 3. It did two jobs at once. Let me explain. When William approaches Earl's Castle, the description of that fortress is given alongside his thoughts. He provides a commentary. The front of the castle is described, and William thinks that a frontal assault would be long, bloody, and likely futile. I didn't notice this description format, however, until Tom arrives at Earl's Castle. The same scene is described, but somehow the description is different. When Tom sees the front of the castle, he thinks about good tools and honest work. I realised that the description is fascinating because it's presented in terms of the opinions of the characters. It isn't mere description. That's not all those paragraphs do to make their description irresistible, though. When William Hamley approaches, each feature of the castle is presented alongside William's opinion on how vulnerable it would be to an attack. Previously in Pillars, we read about why the Hamleys want to take the castle. We understand the stakes. We want to discover the fortress's weaknesses. We're invested in every discovery about Earl's Castle. Really, we are as much scouts as William. The description isn't really description at all. It's a battle plan, and no one ever skips those. Yet again, none of this occurred to me at first. Tom had to arrive for me to catch on. Then I saw that each feature of the castle is described alongside Tom's opinion on whether or not he can repair it. Remember, he's a mason in need of a job. Desperately in need. He's got a family, and they're near starving. His heart aches for them, like his stomach aches for food. and we're invested. We care deeply, almost as much as Tom does. Therefore, we're looking for anything Tom can fix as keenly as Tom is looking. The description is no longer mere description. Finally, in these paragraphs, I think we see the extra mile in description, the author's dream. Did you notice that 19-year-old William thinks the castle is impregnable? Wasn't he impressed with its strength? What about Tom? Didn't his experienced mason's eye notice poor stonework, a crumbling bridge, and vulnerable parapets? Ken Follett achieves a description of William and Tom's differing levels of perception and experience without having to address them separately. He builds character without doing any extra character work. I can't help but applaud that. Honestly, I can't help but want to employ these techniques in my own writing. I want my description to sing. I'm going to look for places where I can present my description alongside the opinions of a character. I'll try to turn tall trees into trees that make my characters feel small. I'll try to turn country cottages into cottages that remind my character of their grandmother and fresh fruit scones. I'll try to turn a tall apartment block either into a soaring home where my character hovers over the city, or into a cramped dump that's just cheap enough to fit their budget. If I can crack that first point, I'll try and make my reader want the description as much as the character. I'll turn a sports car into an anxiously awaited birthday present that please, please, please has the latest speaker system. I'll convert a restaurant into the date destination that needs to be just right, because if it isn't, a perfect relationship could stumble. And if I've made it past level 2, I'll try to nail character work with my description. Possibly the trees, the breeze, and the stream in all their beauty could reveal my character's source of joy. The rumbling of a commuter train with its tightly packed passengers, frequent announcements, and forceful stops could reveal a character who's self-conscious, easily annoyed, and not too steady on their feet. A cold and crisp, snowy morning could make all the hairs on my character's legs stand up, and as snow falls from a branch onto their face, they could realise just how much they hate the cold. By the way, that character's not me. I love snow. But back to our topic. These two pieces of description in the Pillars of the Earth were like little revelations to me. I know description can be tricky, but maybe it's a little less tricky now. I certainly hope so, because I will be trying these techniques in my own writing. Although I'm just learning these techniques, there is something I've got really practiced at. Grammar. And I'd like to help you in that field, so I've got an offer for you. I'll edit the punctuation and grammar in any 2 paragraphs of your writing. You could choose the most awkward ones if you like. I'd probably do that if I were you. Then, when I send them back, I'll include full descriptions of every edit I made so that you can apply them to the rest of your writing. For more information, click the link at the top of the description.